Hello and welcome to the Playful Humans podcast. This is another cool episode with Ashton Rodenhiser. She is a professional doodler and sketchnoting. So we're going to talk about how to draw for a living, how you can draw out your conversations and learn more and think better and all kinds of cool stuff. So you can find Ashton at Mind's Eye Creative Consulting or sketchnote.school/book, where you can get a beginner's guide to sketchnoting if you want to learn how to draw your own notes. If you want to learn how to rediscover the power of play, you can go to playfulhumans.com, and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening and watching right now. Here we go. All right, Ashton, welcome to the podcast. We like to start with the joke of the week. The joke of the week this week is brought to you by the word plethora. I would like to thank dictionary.com for teaching me the word plethora. It means a lot. Okay, the official joke of the week is, what's the difference between a cranky 2-year-old and a duckling? A baby duck. One is a whiny toddler, and the other is a tiny waddler.
Cute. Very cute.
There we go. Do you have a joke you'd like to share with us?
Yes, my favorite one is, what is Beethoven's favorite fruit?
I have no idea.
Banana.
Yes, I like it. Okay, that'll get us started in the right mood. I guess the best question for you right off the bat is, what's the power of doodling and drawing? How have you found this beneficial for yourself or others?
Yeah, so doodling has gotten a bit of a bad rap. So I feel like part of my personal mission at this point is trying to bring back the power of the doodle, people. And
There you go.
my favorite stat, I'm not much of a stat person, so I'm just going to throw it out there and get it over with, is about doodling. And it is the fact that you can retain up to 29% more information just by doodling, just by putting a little swirly swirl or whatever it is on your paper when you're making notes. A lot of folks have gotten in trouble for doodling, in the past in their notes, but it actually was helping you stay focused. So trying to, rewrite the fact that it can actually be a very powerful tool to help you think and learn. The way that I see what I do is just taking that doodle, just making it work for you a little bit more, make it a little bit more purposeful.
Yeah, I love that because I think it's so many things we talk about on this podcast. It's one of those things that we do naturally. We love to do it. We love to doodle and draw, and you can give a crayon to a 2-year-old and they will scribble all
Yeah.
over the paper and enjoy making art. And then it's one of those things that kind of gets beaten out of us and not encouraged. And for some reason, they pick some people and they say you're good at drawing, and they tell other people they're not, and they give up on
Yeah.
it, like dancing and singing, and a lot of art forms are that way. Writing,
Hmm.
even public speaking and stuff that I do, somebody encouraged me along the way, and so I lean into that. And I think it's something that
Right.
we can all do. And as an adult, there's no rules, right? Sure, there was
Yeah.
teachers or somebody parents checking your notes or something as a kid, but there's no rules now. If you want to draw on your sheet of paper during a Zoom meeting, nobody's ever going to see it. Do what makes you happy
Right.
or what makes you the most productive and stuff. So I love that. Anything else you would say about drawing? And I'm sure you have a ton of techniques because you got a whole book and a school about teaching people to do this. But
Hmm.
is there any other common myths or misconceptions about doodling? Does it need to have a point? Do you need to draw shapes and make notes? Or I always put stars by, things that I want to remember and find later when I have a page full of notes from a conference or something. Do you have any
Hmm.
quick tips or ideas on that?
Yeah, well, if you want to start doing sketchnoting, I think one of the biggest things is trying to let go of capturing everything. I find when we
Mhm.
get into meetings and presentations, we aren't trying to digest and learn in the moment or just writing everything down frantically. So sketchnoting is sort of flips that on its head a little bit and makes you think while you're listening, which is a muscle to build and try to train over time with lots of practice. But at the end of the day, you don't need to actually really know how to draw anything. Like I can teach you the sketchnoting skills in like 15 minutes or less. Like it's not rocket science. The core of my graphics that I create for myself or for clients, still most of them is essential drawing elements like a line and an arrow and a square and a little glorified stick person called a star person. Like they're not rocket science. So you can capture information in a way that is bite-sized, but you're not also trying to capture everything at the same time. So I think that's like the extra. There's sort of like the in the moment power of sketchnoting, which is like challenging your thinking while you're listening to something and trying to understand it in the moment and break down complexity and gain some clarity. But then there's the second benefit of now you have this visual representation of what just happened and it will help you remember it. I think that's my favorite out of all of the value of sketchnoting is the memory retention, because like you were just telling me right before this podcast that you were at a conference and like how much information was at that conference and how much have you actually remembered after the end of it with so many speakers and so much awesome stuff. It's so hard to remember it all. And if you can have this little snapshot of the key ideas, the main lessons, the lessons learned, the things that resonated with you, then you can remember it, not just to remember it, because that's a nice thing, but then maybe actually put some of that learning into action, which is what I would hope many of the speakers would want you to do is like, learn it, but like maybe do something with that information.
Well, I think there's a lot there that's really powerful because I'm thinking of it from the other side. I've never done sketchnoting or anything. I try to do interesting different ways to remember things and take notes. But when I'm speaking and I'm the person on stage, like I try to be very careful about the number of main points that I have in a talk. So my talk at Inbound was 45 minutes. I was like, really, I can do 3 things. And if I try to get people to remember 5, 8, 7 things, they're not even going to remember them all, let alone put them into action. So it's like, okay, I can have 3 things. And then I want to anchor them to something with feelings that we don't really remember facts and numbers and a lot of data unless we write it down. But I love what you're saying with the drawing is that we can capture these emotions and the feelings or the situation that we want it to. And now we're anchoring in some other things that make it more memorable. So I did a couple of magic tricks and some audience interaction stuff to just demonstrate the point. And then people remember how you make them feel. And I think that's what is cool about the sketch notes is, you know, if you think about it like a comic strip, is that you can make people feel things. You can make them remember the situation and the context as much as the fact or data that they had to memorize. And that's really cool.
Yeah. Like I oftentimes will, like if a speaker is telling a story, you know, I'm not like writing out the whole story, but I'm writing something that sticks out from it. Like it's the lesson at the end of it, if it was like a funny little character or what have you. So that when someone looks at it later, they're going to go, oh, right. I remember when he did that magic trick. Oh my gosh. I remember when he did that thing, right. To help you jog your memory and enhance your learning in that way. Definitely. So, and I appreciate speakers like you for not trying to cram a million things in 45 minutes. I appreciate that. That's why I did like a little bow when you were saying, I was like, yeah. Yes. Thank you so much for doing that, because some of the smartest people in the room, when I do these events, they're the hardest to capture because I think they just want to share too much. I wish the example I give is like, you're just sharing like a chapter of a book. You're not sharing the whole book, people. Like it's like people can't remember you talking about the whole book in an hour, but they could remember a chapter. They could remember like 1 or 2 of those main lessons. But
I think really even more than the chapter, you're really just sharing like the outline.
That's true. You know, that's the philosophy.
Maybe the high main points of each chapter, but not the whole book. And even then, maybe it's the sections of the book. That's kind of what I try to think about is when I'm outlining the speech is like, what are those main sections of the book? Like, okay, we got to have the setup, we got to have the punchline, and then we need to have like the takeaway or action item. Those are the three things we can build around, and then we can add in, depending on our time and number of people in the audience and stuff, some different things to make that happen. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about doing this live, because I think that's crazy. I always think about it ahead of time. When I'm building my slides, I try to do the same thing. I want powerful images and maybe like 3 to 5 words and a title. I don't want to put all of the information on a slide. I did win an award last week for the most words on a slide, but
Did you?
It was for very good reason. Yeah.
Okay.
And I gave it with like a QR code in the corner so people could scan and download it and have it and stuff later. But that was the whole plan. That was the whole book put together. And we didn't even really talk about it or dive into it. It's just like, I wanted to show people what the completed one-page plan for their sales process looked like. But the rest of the time, I'm trying to keep like big pictures and a title, hardly ever even put bullet points on a slide, because I feel like they're not going to remember the bullet points either. So unless they're absolutely necessary. But I'm wondering, do you do this ahead of time for people? And what's the difference between a prepared presentation and the one that you're creating as you're listening in the moment with a sketch note?
Yeah, so 99.9% of the time, I have no idea what the speaker is going to say before they say it. I prefer it that way. There is an element of risk. I take a risk every time I do that.
It makes it fun.
It's risky. I'm a risky lady. But so I'm curious to see what you have to say about my comment here. But if you do a good PowerPoint presentation right, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to know what they're going to talk about. Like you're going to read things and you're going to see some images, but it's not in context. It doesn't have the voice explaining it. So when people ask me, do you want PowerPoints ahead of time? I always say no because of that reason. And I'm like, if they did it justice or if they did it right, it shouldn't actually give me a whole lot of insight necessarily. Like maybe a graph that I might want to redraw. I don't know, maybe. But most of the time, unfortunately, folks just have like walls of text on these slides anyways. And I'm like, I don't know what they're going to say. And I'm thinking about going into it. I'm thinking about what I think they're going to say instead of being in the moment and listening just like everybody else and capturing what they're actually saying. Right. So there's so many decisions you have to make in the moment. I can't also be distracted by what I think is coming up next. So I just decide, that's sort of how I've always done it. I've done this for 10 years now. It's how I've always done it. It's how I prefer to work. There's been, a couple times in my career that you get there and it's a mess. One of the smartest people I've ever captured, or famous, I'll say famous, I won't mention his name, but one of the most famous people I've ever captured was one of the worst experiences of my life. Not because I was terrified that he was so famous, but the fact that he was all over the freaking place with his presentation.
I found the more famous people are the worst presenters and
Thank you for saying that. That is what I have said. It is, and I get it. They're so smart and they have so much wisdom to share. And they're just like, blah. It's either they're all over the place or they just say all this stuff and it doesn't make sense. And I actually had, and so I was on the stage in front of like thousands of people with this guy and absolutely terrified. And he was all over the place. And I was all over the place. And I didn't feel good about what I created. I was like, this is like one of the biggest moments in my career. And I feel awful because I felt like I didn't do a very good drawing. And the conference organizers came to me the next day and they were like, how was that last night? And I was like, I'm not going to lie. It was really hard. I was feeling so embarrassed because I felt like you could compare some of my drawings from some of the other speakers I had done that day and then this one. And I just didn't think it was good of drawing. Like it wasn't as good as some of my other stuff. And they were like, yeah, we felt bad for you up there. And I was like, okay. So from that moment on, I was like, if I'm feeling this way, there's a really good chance other people are feeling this way.
Yeah.
So, when I've been in a situation since then, because like that was like 2018, that's quite a long time ago now. When I've been in a situation since then, I'm like, it's okay, because other people are probably feeling the same thing. I know I'm not alone in my, oh my gosh, what's happening feeling. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think there's so much to unpack there, and I love all of what you just said. You made my heart happy this morning too.
Yay.
So I'm glad that we're on the same page. Um, I'll take them in reverse order. So
Mm,
I've been in that situation too, and I've seen so many speakers that I think it's either like a celebrity glow and people just think they're smart because they've
mhm.
been successful, but those things aren't necessarily true. There's a lot of luck and timing and or other people around them, or they're just not speakers. Like they're really good at being a
Yeah, I
computer programmer,
know.
but they're not really great at being a speaker. And I think
Exactly.
there is a lot of stuff there. But also, I love that you said you're the professional. So if you're having trouble following a talk and you've done hundreds of these, imagine somebody sitting in the audience for the first time hearing somebody
Yeah.
like this. They're not following these stories. The speaker's not
Yeah.
closing the loop on any of these points, and so they're struggling.
Yeah.
Number two, I love what you said about doing it live, because I'm very
Mm.
much that way for this podcast. Sometimes people ask for the
Mhm.
questions in advance, and I go, well, I wish I knew what they were going to be, but I don't. I don't know where this is going. I hope we're going to have a good
Yeah.
time. I'm going to listen and ask you about your life and career. And so I think there is some magic to doing it live and to listening and being present in the moment rather than trying to force something into the hole, or to get a timing right and try to
Yeah.
nail something. You have to practice so much, and I'm sure you'd feel this way too, that if you really did work with that same presenter over and over again and every single one of their like speeches, you would know where they were going. You could
Mhm.
work with them on timing and stuff and be like, hey, we need to close the loop on this story so that I have time to
Mhm.
draw. And you could probably create a nice choreographed presentation to do live with them. But for
Yeah.
me, it's not the same. But then it's
Mhm.
just sort of like a robot. You might as well have like recorded that and just played the video for everybody,
Yeah,
because it's
exactly.
not in the moment. It's not that magic of capturing the feeling and the mood that day. And like you mentioned, how many other speakers have they heard? My presentation
Mhm.
is different if I'm going after lunch or in an afternoon
Mhm.
lull than if I'm the first person to kick it off or the
Yeah.
closing speaker. Even if the content's the same, the presentation needs to be different. And I think that's a little
Yeah.
example of the magic that you're talking about. And then
Mhm.
finally, I also wanted to highlight, and I feel like I'm just re-saying all the stuff you said, but from my
It's all
but
good.
um, yes, when I'm giving a presentation, I try to tell people that I know what I'm going to talk about, but I don't know what I'm going to say. And so I
Right.
leave room for that magic, that I know the main points that I want to communicate. I know my opening and my closing and how I want people to feel and what the main takeaways are likely going to be. But if I script it all out and I wrote it out and I time it and I do all the transitions between slides and I put all the things on the slides, then it gets into some sort of like machine again, where it loses the
Yeah.
magic and it loses the timing of stuff that is so fun. So I love that you highlighted that magic, because I think that's part of the playfulness, and the not knowing what's
Mhm.
going to happen next or
Yeah.
where it's going to go is part of what makes the tension of making things interesting in
Mhm.
our life. And it's okay to have bad ones too.
Mhm.
Some are going to be better than others. If you do 100 drawings, one's going to be the 100th best and one's going to be the best. There's no way to avoid it. You want maybe
Yeah.
those proportions, how far apart they are, to be closer together than further apart.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
sometimes that's just the magic. And I think people struggle sometimes with doing it in the moment and being okay with maybe it not working out or it being a little bit uh, better
You
if
know,
they did
one
it.
yeah. Yeah, one side's a little crowded, or you spelled something wrong, or you don't like your
Yeah.
drawing that you did, or what have you. Yeah. Yeah.
Now I want to flip back and ask you a little bit more about your career and how you
Mm.
got into this and everything, because I find that also fascinating that, um, probably no fifth grader right now is saying like, I want to be a professional doodler when I grow up, because they don't even
I
know that that's an
know.
option.
Yeah.
And I heard a
Yeah.
stat one time that, kids graduating college now will have 9 different career like jobs in there throughout the rest of their life, and 7 of them have not even been invented yet. Like
Wow.
podcaster and professional doodler, we didn't know were things when we
Mhm. Mhm.
graduated. So
Yeah.
Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about your journey. Have you always tried to be artistic and creative, or did you like go and take a history degree or something first and then have to come back?
Yeah, so I've always been very creative. I'm like, and I am a bit of like the black sheep of the family. People are like, how is she like she's the artsy one? Like I'm like the weird artsy one in my family.
Oh, that's fun.
And but there was a lot of rhetoric, can't make money as an artist, don't waste your money at art school. And my family would, be making fun of those art kids that went to school and now they're gonna leave art college and not have any money and won't have, so it wasn't even an option. Like I didn't even consider it because it was just so ingrained as like not possible,
Mhm.
which was frustrating. And then I was a smart kid in school. I was top of my class, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I had to spend all my own money and get loans. And I didn't want to get loans if I didn't have to. So if I was like, I'm not going to go to university if I don't know what I want to take. And I remember sitting around talking with folks those last few months of high school, and everyone's telling me, "Oh, I'm gonna do this, gonna do that," and I'm like, "I just want to be a mom." And people are like,
Mm.
"What?" And I'm like, "I just want to be a mom. I don't know what I want to do. I have this desire to be a mother. I'm very nurturing. I always worked with kids. Like I worked at camps. I did all the things with kids growing up. So I decided to go to early childhood education because it's a transferable skill. I was like, well, I'll do this for now until I have my own kids. And then I'll know how to like raise them properly, which was a joke. That's a joke. You throw that education out the window when you have your own kids. I
Yeah.
do have three. I have three children, so ages 5,
Nice.
7, and 10. So I did do that. Um, but I started working after college. I was like, crap, maybe I don't want to work with kids. But I was like, well, I got this. I got to do something. I almost became a sign language interpreter. Almost did that. I went and took
Ooh,
all
that's
the
fun.
prerequisites to get in. I didn't do it, but I almost did it. But while I was doing the prerequisites, I got a job at a family center and worked with parents and kids, and it was awesome. And my last few years I was there, I worked as a facilitator, and absolutely fell in love with facilitation, how to help groups navigate their own ideas. And I loved it because I thought maybe at one point I wanted to be a teacher, and then I learned about facilitation, and I'm like, facilitation is way better because you don't need to know anything. So it's
Shh,
really
don't give
about
away my secrets.
you're just like really good at asking the right questions and navigating safe spaces. And I just really fell in love with it. And then after doing that for a couple of years, I had another facilitator friend of mine say, there's this thing called graphic facilitation, and there's like a 1-day workshop, and I'm going to go if you want to go. And I'm like, cool. And I took a course and I was like, this is it. Like, it was just beautiful coming together of the facilitation world. I've already developed my listening and my thinking and my synthesizing. Now I just have to feed back in words instead of pictures. So, um, had a couple kids, la la la. But then after I had my second one, I was like, okay, I really want to figure this out and do it properly, and do it full time and build a business around it. So, and that
Cool.
was like, yeah. So I've been doing it for 10 years, and I started building a business about 7 years ago. And I'm a very goal-oriented person, and I'm very high achiever. So when I set my mind to something, I'm going to do it no matter what. So I just tried to figure it out. Like I guess I was very entrepreneurial, but didn't know that I was. Like
Yeah.
the entrepreneur, like being an entrepreneur just sort of came very naturally to me. And I saw my husband build a business. He has a landscaping business, and I saw him do it right out of high school. Like he went to horticultural school, and then he built his business, and he didn't have any business experience. And I'm like, he's a pretty smart guy. I'm pretty smart. If he can figure it out, I can figure it out. Like I know it's a completely different business, but I think it might not, if it wasn't for him, I might have thought, well, maybe I have to go to business school and figure this out. But I'm like, well, he figured it out. And
Yeah.
then I was meeting other graphic facilitators and graphic recorders and sketchnoters that were building businesses. And I'm like, well, if they could figure it out, I'm sure I could figure it out. I'm smart enough. So, yeah.
I love that. I love the confidence. And again, I can relate to so much of that. I kind of said that my family had two arms of it. My mom's side of the family, like her great grandmother was a piano teacher, and they're very artistic and musicians and
Nice.
fashion designers and graphic designers, all kinds of things. And my dad's side of the family was the exact opposite. It was like all boys, very business school, all salespeople, like all driven, very go-getter type A personalities. And so I kind of felt like I landed in the middle, but I did have some, better I think childhood messages there, that it's okay to
Yeah.
be playful and creative and have fun, and that entrepreneurial stuff is okay
Nice.
too, that if you need money, you can find a way to make money. It doesn't have to be
Right.
a soulless job. You can have fun and make money at the same time, and you can do it. And I think that's a real gift that hopefully we can both share with everybody else listening and watching today,
Hmm.
that
Yeah, I love
there are
that.
cool ways. And that's what this podcast is all about, to have
Hmm.
fun and make money, follow your dreams and passions, and get better at it along the way. And hopefully if your husband watches this, what I heard was, if he can do it, I can definitely do this for my
Yeah.
entrepreneurial business. um,
Yeah.
so that's awesome. And I think you also get to design the life of your dreams too. I'm assuming with your kids
Yeah.
and other stuff that you maybe take some projects or don't take some projects based on how that impacts your life. And people say balance. I
Hmm.
don't like the word balance, but
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
choices and consequences and impacts, which is, I think, a really cool thing too. How has that worked
Yeah.
out for you?
Uh, I like to work, so I do
Mhm.
have a harder time. Like, I really did take a lot of time off this summer, and I feel good about that. So I'm a little frantic now, but whatever. It is what it is. But when before COVID, I was 100% in person. I was
Mm,
traveling all over North America multiple times a month, over into Europe, and I didn't realize how stressful the travel was until I didn't have to do it anymore. I was forced to
yeah.
stop, right? So it really made me, well, one, I had to basically rebuild my business from scratch when COVID hit. And luckily, I had some like tech clients that still had money to pay me to do things. But it really made me think. Like, honestly, I have a hard time sharing this because so many people struggle during COVID, but COVID was like the best thing that happened to me, to be honest, even
Mm,
though it was really hard in the beginning, basically rebuilding my business from scratch. It really forced me to figure out how to work from home. And at the beginning of 2020, I was like, I want to try to figure out how to work from home more. Be careful what you wish for.
yeah.
um, so I've really tried to stay as virtual as possible and as local as I possibly can. And I have turned down jobs that I would have to travel for um, this year and last year a bit. And I'm, just have to be okay with it, and I have to trust in the universe that it will bring me another project that's going to fit my needs better.
Yeah.
And
Love that.
I have some like ongoing clients that hire me for multiple things a year and a couple things a month sometimes. So, I just have to lean in on that, and it does allow me to have, of course, way more flexibility because I can just like roll out of bed and roll into my studio after the kids get on the bus.
And the
And
virtual ones, you only have
have
to be prepped from the waist up,
if I
which is
wanted to
great.
be, yeah. And like some of my clients, they still incorporate the in-person aspect by taking my Zoom screen and projecting it on a large screen in the room or two little screens in the room. And I'm like, that's just as good as me being there. Like, I do miss the vibe. There's just a vibe of being there and capturing live. But it's still great. It's still better than nothing. And I get to work with awesome people. And I think over the years, you learn the hard way by working with people that aren't the right fit. So when you get a
Yep.
little feeling like this might not be the right fit, you just say no and trust that, your experience and how you show up for your clients will just kind of pay you back over time. So I've sort of like
Oh,
let go of
good.
the reins a little bit when it comes to like trying to find new clients because the majority of my clients this year have been repeat clients or they found me through word of mouth or what have you. So that comes with time, obviously, but I feel kind of in a good place when it comes to that. So, and that's
Great
what really
advice
allowed,
and
yeah,
congratulations on that. I think that's really cool. And there's a lot of good stuff again there that people can take away from that. And I think there is magic to being in person, and there's some powerful things there. And there's some magic to doing things virtually and easily. And
yeah,
you can do different tools and have people collaborate on a whiteboard or a drawing or something together that you can't do
exactly.
live as easily. And it sounds like you're making really cool choices for what works for you, and then you can always change it too. Is what I tell people
Exactly.
too. Is like, you want to go back to live, you can just start taking some of the live gigs and things.
Exactly. Exactly. Like there's nothing ever set in stone. And I just sort of run my business with my intuition and
Yeah.
experimentation, because you can never fail if everything's just like a playful experiment, right?
Yes, I agree, and you nailed it. So, do you want to play a game?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm ready.
Okay. We're going to play two truths and a lie. So you can play along at home or in the comments right now. Guess which one is true and which one is a lie. Do you want to go first or second, Ashton?
You go first, because I got to change one because I mentioned something in
Oh,
what I
okay.
talked
Yeah, I
about.
had to be careful too. I wanted to tell one of my stories because I was
I got
thinking
to think
about
it.
it. And
Okay,
I said,
I'll come
all right,
up another
you do
one. You
that.
go first.
We're talking with Ashton Rodenhiser. You can find her at Mind's Eye Creative or sketchnote.school. And then if you do /book, you can get the beginner's guide to sketchnoting, perfect what you want to draw, and start drawing your own notes. And if you obviously need a meeting, professional doodler for your next meeting, and add some color and flair to what you're doing, talk to Ashton at Mind's Eye Creative. Okay, Ashton, I have taken a speed reading course. I have taken an ice sculpting lesson, and I have become a certified Lego facilitator.
I'm going to say the first one, the speed reading.
No,
Is
actually,
that the lie?
um, I was dyslexic, and
Oh,
so in high school, I
okay.
had to take speed reading to get me like back up to average. But now I feel like I'm well above average on the speed reading. Never done the ice
Okay.
sculpting lessons. I
Oh,
feel like I
okay.
saw
Okay.
somebody do that live at an event one time with the the
Yeah.
chainsaws and
Yeah.
sculpting and stuff, which was cool. But last week I got certified to teach people how to play with Lego, and I can't think of
Yeah.
anything cooler that I wanted to do this year.
I
So
love
awesome.
that.
Let's
That's awesome.
let you go.
All right. I have met the Prime Minister of Canada.
Mm,
I have built a library in Kenya,
mm.
and I founded an Art at Night festival and ran it for 7 years.
Ooh, okay. When we get some specifics, that's interesting.
That's true.
I'm guessing you would have changed it if that speaker you were talking about earlier was the prime minister. So
No, it wasn't him. No.
I'm I'm gonna say um I'm gonna say the middle one here too. I think
The
that is right.
library in Kenya? No, I
Yeah.
did that.
Dang it.
No, yeah. I've
Thought
never
that
met
was
the Prime Minister of Canada. I've never met him.
No.
But
I
yeah.
have a really funny story. I met I can't even tell the whole story, but I met Barack Obama coming
Okay. Okay.
into a restaurant that I was coming out of after we both
Oh, cool.
spoke at a conference in San Diego. So that's the
Fun.
closest I've ever been. I wouldn't really say I met him.
Right. It
I
was
saw
like
him walking.
oh.
Yeah. Fun. Well, that was cool. Thank you so much for playing, and you win because we both failed. So you get a free 30-second commercial here. Any final thoughts for us, or tell us about Mind's Eye Creative and what you have going on at Sketchnote School?
Yeah. So, if this is interesting to you for your next conference or meeting or strategic planning session, whatever you're working on, would be so fun to chat about. I will come in person. I'm just picky. Maybe if it's the right fit, I'll come in person, or to help you out virtually at your next event. We can certainly chat about what that would look like. And if you're like, this sounds really cool, and maybe I want to take my doodling to the next level and experience the benefits of visualizing the information, you can grab a copy of my book called The Beginner's Guide to Sketchnoting, emphasis on the beginners. I really handhold you through the process. I also have an online community. If you grab the book and that you really want to kind of dive into it more and have some more hand holding and support from me, all that information you can find at sketchnote.school. And I got a free newsletter if you want a sketchnote tip of the week on Saturdays too. So lots of good stuff to check out.
Nicely done. Again, Ashton Rodenhiser is the guest, and the Playful Humans podcast happens every week. If you haven't subscribed, hit the like, share, subscribe buttons wherever you're listening or watching this. We would love to have you back. And if you want to rediscover the power of play, go to playfulhumans.com. We do team building events. We host virtual game shows and different types of play shops for people. I mentioned the Lego building or brainstorming is awesome as well. And until next time, if you can't be good at it. That's what I always say. Later.
Don't wait for tomorrow. Live for today. Keep on chasing the sun.